Today's session is on organization strategy and the organization chart. So I'm going to go to the organization chart in TouchStone and click it. So this is what the organization chart template looks like, more or less. Yours, if you haven't started to build it yet, it's going to look a little different than this one. First thing I'm going to do is just talk about technically how to use the organization chart. And then we're going to talk a bit about what makes a good organization strategy, some tips and techniques for thinking through your departments. And then I'm going to end with a few processes from our library, which I think are relative to the organization chart. And I'm also going to talk about how to continue to use your organization chart as a strategy tool. So the chart is really easy to use. The functionality is very simple. These little 3 dots inside of every box is how you control what is in that box. So if I click these little 3 dots, I can edit the position title right here. So if I wanted to edit this one, I just choose edit, and then it's going to pop up in this dialog box. And then I'd go and change the title to whatever I want it to be. I can also put in an objective for the position right here. You also have access to that on the job description page, but here you could put in the objective. And then I just hit save. And then you can see right here that this position title has changed. 3 dots here, it gets me back into the edit mode. This is where I go to add a position to the chart. So you'd go to the box that you want to add the position under, and then you just choose add, and then it throws a new box right here. So the chart builds itself from the bottom up. So go to the position that you want to add the box to or under, and then choose add, and the new box will appear. Every new box is untitled to begin with. So once you've added a box, you want to hit these little 3 dots again, and then go to edit, and then put in the name. Just delete the untitled and put in the new position name. And then you hit save, and then that position is named. Deleting boxes is also very easy. Just hit the little 3 dots again and go to remove. This little warning here is going to say, are you sure you want to delete this? Once you click OK, then that box is gone. The consequence of deleting a box from the org chart is that if you have built your job descriptions, then that job description will be deleted. So what I mean by that is if I'm just going to click a position here, in this position, this job description has been built. So all that really means is someone has gone and linked processes from the 4 key functions over here to this box on the chart and has created this job description. If the box gets deleted, or the position, then this document goes away. It doesn't mean that all of these processes are deleted from TouchStone. Doesn't mean that at all. These processes have been linked to this position. So the only way to delete them is to go to the 4 functions and methodically, one at a time, go and delete them all. Super easy to build job descriptions, and we're going to get into some of that next week. But just know if you do delete a position from the chart, it's going to delete that job description. You can also move boxes around the chart pretty easily. It's all drag and drop. So you take the box that you want to move, and I'm just holding my mouse click down here, and then I put it on top of the box I want to move it under. So I just did that, and then it pops over to that box. You can move whole trees as well. So if I click this position here, since it's got a position underneath it, I can drag it over here and let go. And now you see all of those, that whole tree is now under this position. So if I move a managerial position and it's got all of these underneath it, then all those boxes are going to move along with it. Moving it back is just as easy. I'm putting it on top of the box I want it to go under, and then it plops it back over here. So this is a good question from Michelle. She's just asking if you can transfer processes to another position before you delete them. And the answer is yes. How I would do that is let's go to this example. So let's say we have this apprentice technician position here. And let's say I want to delete this position and move all these processes to the position above it. So let me go back here so you can see it. So let's say I want to delete this, and then I want to move all the processes that are on this job description up here. The best way to do that is to click the position, go to the first process and select it, and then go here, link to job description. Then I would take the process off of this position and put it on this one. It's already on this one. So you do that one at a time for every process. This menu here is showing you which job descriptions that this process has been linked to. So it's linked to lead tech, it's linked to customer service. It was on the apprentice technician, and I can add and remove processes from a job description from here. So I'll show you that again. I'm just going to hit cancel on this, and then I hit the browser's back button. I'm going to go back to this job description, and you'll notice that process I removed is gone. So I'd click the next process, then I would go link to job description, and I'm going to remove it from this one and then add it to this one link. So one at a time, as you go through this, you're going to be removing those processes from the apprentice position. You see how this list is getting smaller, and you're going to be adding them to this tech position. Once these processes have all been moved from here to here, then you just delete this box. All right, so moving boxes around, pretty easy on the chart. Just remember everything that you want to do is in these three little dots here: the edit of a position title, the adding of a new position, and then the removing or deleting of a position. Okay, a question I get asked frequently is how do you print the organization chart? So this isn't really an exact science because it's difficult when you have a really big chart to like get it small enough to print on one sheet of paper. So if you do have a really large chart, once you scroll it, zoom it like I'm doing now just by rolling my mouse, once you scroll it so far down, you're not going to be able to see. It's going to degrade the position titles. So now I'm just rolling my mouse up to see it, to make it big again. If you're zooming in and out on the chart with a laptop, just with a finger pad, it gets a little crazy to control. It kind of spazzes in and out. So it's best to do it with a mouse if you're going to be zooming in and out of your chart. But if you do zoom in and out and it starts to look, whoa, it's like this, you can't control it, just go up and refresh the screen, and then it's going to plop it back to its original size. I can also grab the chart with my mouse and just move it this way from left to right, as well as up and down. So back to printing. The easiest way to print is to take a picture. I'm going to just pull up my snipping tool here. So take a screenshot tool that you might have, and then just go like this. And then now I've got a picture of it. And then I can go file and I can print it. When you go to print, you could change this to landscape. If you've got a bigger printer, which allows you to actually print on a huge sheet of paper, then obviously you can control it all from your printer dialog box. So this is the best way. Take a picture of it and then print it any way that you can from that picture. And again, that's going to be based on what type of printer you have. If you do have a chart that is multiple pages long, you could potentially take a picture of like half of it like that. So you could print it in sections and then print that and then kind of piece it together. The chart also allows you to shrink departments down just by hitting these little negative buttons here. So I could click that small, click that small, click that small, and then I could just print this. And then I could open this back up and I can just print this. So this little shrink and unshrink buttons might help you to print it if you just want to print by department. And again, this would be if you had a massive chart. If you're going to have like a company meeting or something like that where you want to show the chart, I would suggest you get a projector and just show it on TouchStone, or do it in a Zoom meeting if you have people working from home. But again, if you have to print, use the snipping tool. This little button up here will allow you to search for positions. So if you do have a big chart and you're like, where's the sales assistant? You don't want to scroll around to try to find it. You can do this, and then TouchStone will, you see that little flash that happens. So it shows you where it is. So if this position was off the view screen, it would pull the chart over and then flash that position for you. That is the search. So that's really the basics of the organization chart and its functionality. Pretty easy to use and move around. So let's talk about how to build your organization chart, not technically, but kind of strategically. So first thing is I get comments on this all the time, and people sometimes don't understand it, but in the template chart, you're always going to see the board of directors here at the top, and then the president. So I've had some people say, well, I don't have a board of directors. Can I delete this position? Well, the answer is yes. You can just hit the little 3 dots here and go in and remove it, and then you're rid of that position. But I would suggest that you don't do that, because this board of directors position is meant to represent the owners of the company. So it's meant to be a position and also work that the owners of the business need to do. So if you don't have a board, then you could change this to owners. You could just hit these little 3 dots and go edit, and then get rid of board of directors and just call this owners or owner. And so if that's a little more friendlier language for you, then you certainly do that. The reason we use the term board of directors is that if you have a corporation, at least in the United States, you're kind of supposed to be having board meetings. And the theory on that is that in those board meetings, the owners get together, as well as external advisors when required or necessary. And the owners talk about the strategy of the business. And their focus is, how do we increase the value of this asset? How do we make this asset worth more? How do we create an asset or build the asset up to the point where it's giving us dividends, net profit for owning it? Not doing any work in it, no salary for working in it, just for the fact that you own it. It's giving you dividends. So that's a whole different perspective than this person has down here as a manager, or even as the president has, frankly. So this is encouragement to keep this position and to think about that. If you are the owner of the company, I know some of you aren't, but if you are, think about what work do you need to do and what do you need to be thinking about in order to maximize the asset? Not what salary are you going to get and how much are you going to make and who are you going to pay other money to, but the asset itself. Working in TouchStone, building processes, that's working on your asset, because these processes that are built in TouchStone become assets on your balance sheet, really. And they create a business that is worth more. So any work that you do in TouchStone is doing the work that an entrepreneur or an owner would do. Underneath chairman of the board, board of directors, owner, you have president. The president you could call this CEO, you could call it general manager. The word's really not important. What this role does is the president takes directions from the board. So takes the vision that has been set by the owners and then implements that vision across the key departments. So it's a strategic position that manages these key managers that are below here, and pushes the vision down all the way to the technical workers right down here at the bottom. So the CEO or the president is a manager, a strategist, an analyst, a developer. They take, again, the vision from the owners and make it happen within the company. Underneath the president role, there are generally 3 key departments that achieve the results of the business. There is sales and marketing, or we call it getting the business. So this department here. There is operations, service delivery, whatever production, whatever you want to call it. This is doing the business. So getting the work done. Once something is sold over here, these are the people who deliver that. And then there is the office processes, administration, finance, reception, HR. So this whole department is also considered the overhead. It's the support department in support of the rest of the company. Now, if you've got like 2 different services you offer or 2 different types of operations or production, you might have two operational managers right under president, like here and here. If you're mainly a sales-driven organization, you outsource all the fulfillment, but you sell like 2 main product lines. Well, maybe you have, more of a sales and marketing department with multiple managers, and then less of an operations. So there are varying ways that the company could be organized based on your industry. But for the most part, like 95% of the time, these are the 3 main boxes under president that I would see representing those departments. Now, if your company's small and you're just starting to grow, and you don't have managers within each of these key departments, still put them on your organization chart. So an organization chart can be built for the future. So it becomes a picture of where you're going, not necessarily where you are right now. So again, if you don't have these managers yet, still put them on the org chart, because the plan is to grow into this. There's a huge benefit of thinking about your uniformity of work and creating departments for that. So this department thinks of getting business. How do we get it? How do we get it? How do we create the leads? How do we sell the leads? This department is fulfillment. Everyone is delivering the products or services in exactly the way that they were promised. And then this department is service. It's support. It's information. It's reporting. So when you have this uniformity of work, then you get people with like mindsets that are doing work in support of that effort, and then it becomes more efficient by nature. When you have people that are spanning the organization chart, so they do a little bit here and then a little bit here and a little bit here, that's where you get inefficiencies. So when you sit down to do this org chart exercise, try to get people out of your head and just think about structure. What is this business going to look like in the future if I was to eliminate all people and personalities and just think how efficient could it be? Or what does it need to look like to be the most efficient? So starting here with the sales and marketing department, of course, you need the manager. And then there are pretty much 2 key results that have to happen. There's the generation of leads, and then there's the selling of those leads. So some type of advertising or lead generation positions like this one, or a marketing coordinator like this one, and then sales people who take those leads and then close deals. Again, depending on your industry, this might look a little different, but think about those 2 results. When you start to consider the positions you need in each department, think about the goals of the business. So where do you see yourself in 3 or 5 years? Where do you see yourself in 2 years? Think of a milestone that makes sense to you. If you're a manager on the line here, like you're not the business owner, think about this in terms of your own department, because you can have a vision for the sales and marketing department here. And so everything that I'm saying still rings true for you. Think about where you want sales to be, and then consider what positions are going to be necessary to get you there. So sales and marketing is quantifiable. It's also an art, but it is measurable. And so you want to consider how many leads you're going to need to generate in order to grow the business to a certain level. What percentage of those leads will convert in order for you to get the sales necessary to grow. So what is your version of that? Do you want a social media manager? Do you need a marketing coordinator? Do you need a pure advertising position where all they do is generate leads? And then if you have those number of leads coming in, how many salespeople over here do you need to be converting those leads? Then move to your operations. So think sales first, then move to operations. So again, with this department, it's considering how big the business is going to grow. And then what kind of fulfillment staff do you need in order to support that level of sales? So as all the leads are coming in over here and the sales are happening, when they get dumped onto this department here, what positions will be necessary to fulfill all those new sales? So what are your technical positions? If you have a warehouse or you have products coming and going, what positions do you need for that? Name the position titles. Also consider levels. So this is an example of levels within an operations department. So I've got apprentice right here, and then this position moves up to lead tech, and then lead tech moves up to senior tech. Here's another example of that. I hire people here as a sales assistant, and then they move up to salesperson. Warehouse associate then moves up to a lead. Why this is useful is it helps you to plan training, and it helps you to consider how you're going to grow your own talent from within. Are you going to hire people at an entry level and then move them up to here over time? The organization chart can lay this out for you, and it helps you in hiring and it helps you in planning. It also helps in process documentation, because here, if I document all the processes for what the apprentice technician does, I have them all in this job description, then I know what this position needs to master or learn before they can move here. And then once they're here, I know what they need to learn and master before they move here. So once you're here and you move up here, you're responsible for all the processes in both of these job descriptions. And then you move up here and you're responsible for all three of these positions, or you know how to do all that work is another way to say it. Once you have this kind of structure, you can lay some timing over it. So you can say to yourself, I'm going to hire someone here. It's going to take them 6 months to get here and then another 6 to get here. So every person I hire as an apprentice tech, I'm going to need a year to get them up to be a senior tech. So this is called growing your own talent from within, creating a way for your employees to evolve. And processes are the key to all of this. It's also really important when you're thinking about growing, because if you've got lots of leads coming in over here and lots of sales happening, and then it's getting put on this department, well, the question is always, do we have the people to fulfilling all of these new sales that are coming in? And if you're scrambling to hire people and get them trained, well, all of you who have an operational or production-based business know the issues with that. You start to lose money because you're giving projects to people down here who really don't know what they're doing. And then they're making mistakes and your cost of goods sold is out of control. So having an idea of how to hire and train people and the time that takes will allow you to plan for it. In a growing business, it's always this balance between operations and sales all the time. More sales means more operations. Less sales, well, then now you need less operations. And the organization chart really helps in this situation, because as business owners, we're always thinking, well, we need more people, but am I going to have the sales to support those people? If you had all the money in the world, I would say build up this department, get lots of good qualified people trained and ready to go, and then ramp up your sales. But that's not the case. A lot of you are bootstrapped and you don't have the money to be doing that. So you have to balance all the time between sales and operations. So this type of planning within your operations department can, help you see it better. And then over here to administration and finance, or the manager of admin finance, the office department. So sometimes I think that this whole support department here gets a bad rap because it's considered overhead. And well, we don't need to spend money on that. Well, it's really the exact opposite. This department provides essential services that allow these departments over here, the income producing departments, to be more efficient. More efficient means more productive means more profits. So to the degree that you're lacking here, you're actually forcing these people to be doing that work, which is making them less efficient and less able to focus on what they're good at, which is the selling and the doing. So some examples of that are HR, recruiting and hiring, onboarding. If you're having your operations manager do their own recruiting and hiring and onboarding, not that they shouldn't be involved in the interviewing process to some degree, but if they're putting in ads and running resumes, and it just is work they don't need to do. So you can gain some efficiencies by having some sort of HR processes, maybe not a full-time position, but processes that are done within this department. Bookkeeping, also a major thing. If these people here don't know what the sales are, or how much material they spent on a particular project, or what their returns are, or any of that, if they don't have that information, then they can't be effective. So having good on-time bookkeeping is really important. Providing reports to these positions over here so that they can understand what their results are, and then ultimately how to make them better. Basic reception type admin positions where you're routing phone calls and filing things and having papers ready, all that stuff, again, makes it so the operations in the sales department can be more effective or efficient. There's a certain level of overhead that is going to be required for a business of a certain size. So that's just about doing budgeting and figuring out what positions are required and how many of them in order to support the other departments. So that's just some basics on putting together your different departments and considering what positions that you need. Let your vision for where your business is going to be in the future guide this organization chart. Don't try to make it a picture of what is right now. Think into the future and use this as a planning tool. You can even do like little dates like I've got here. Like this position, I'm going to hire in Q4 of 2021. So you can think about where you are now to where you want to be in 2 years, and then put in dates for these future positions that maybe aren't full now, or maybe you want to add more positions to. The planning of hiring kind of helps with this juggling act of sales and operations. Yes, things have to be adjusted and they don't always go according to plan, but documenting processes really helps with that. Because if I have advertising processes and I know I can put a certain amount of money into social media or into Google pay-per-click or whatever it is, and I'm going to get roughly a certain amount of leads, and then I know I can take those qualified leads here and give them to the sales department, and they're going to convert them at a certain rate, which means having a sales process that you know converts. Then I really have just unlocked the key to growth, because I know all I need is the money to spend here to then convert here to then send it over here. But then here's where the juggling act comes in, right? Because you have to have qualified people. If it's going to take you a year from here to here, well, then you have to plan for that. I think one of the fallacies that a lot of business owners live under is that they can always find this position. I can find that senior tech position that has had 5 years of experience and does everything perfectly. And this fallacy is perpetuated by sometimes when you do find that person, sometimes you will find a really good senior tech that you steal from your competition or wherever they come from. And then you got that guy and you're like, wow, this guy's so great. Why isn't everyone else like him? Why can't people do it like him? And it's because that's not a scalable model. Go steal senior techs from your competition. That's fraught with errors. So what is scalable, what is reliable, what is dependable is this here: hire here, move here, move here. And the more you do it, the better your processes get, the quicker you're going to be able to move people from here to here. It also helps when making bad hires. So if I have 10 processes that an apprentice tech needs to learn, and I think they should learn them all in 2 weeks, because an efficient person who's got, has common sense should be able to learn them in a week. If this guy I just hired can barely get 2 down in 1 day, then you got a bad hire there. And you can cut your losses before you spend all that amount of time training and trying to make it work. So that's just another reason to really push for something like this where you can control it. All right. So once your chart is done, your future chart, you want to then think about how to make it work in the current situation. So the future chart is still works in the current situation. And how it works is you put people's names in boxes for what they're doing now. So this is a chart, maybe I'm going to reach this in 2 years. In the current situation, I have an operations manager, but he's also doing some technical work. And then he also works in the warehouse. Or the president is the operations manager. Or the president is the sales manager and the operations manager and does some sales. That would be a smaller business. So think about the people you currently have and then lay them over a role. Put them in that box. Now, if you have a person who fills multiple roles, then put their name in both boxes. So if I've got a warehouse lead who is also doing sales, then his or her name goes in both of these boxes. This is a way to take a current situation that might be a little chaotic and people dependent and put it over a functional situation. So taking the work that person does and fitting them into a box. What you don't want to do is create a box customized to a person. So I wouldn't want to create this position and call it Bob, who does customer service and sales, and then put all the processes here, because it's violating uniformity of work, which is one of the basis of good organization strategy. It's also creating people dependency, because Bob here has customized this work based on what he's good at. And if he's to leave, then there's no filling that role, really. It doesn't make sense to. Another thing that kind of situation creates is a stressful situation, chaos in some situations. Anytime I hear a business owner say, I got this great employee, she's so wonderful, she can do everything, I can give her anything to do, she's multitask, she's so great, I can't live without her, I just cringe. Because that person, if you were to ask them, how do you like your job? They're going to say, I am so stressed out. It's so chaotic. I can't get anything done. I sit down to do my work for the day. Before I know it's the end of the day and I only got 2 things done. Everyone's coming to me asking questions. That person is really stressed out and overwhelmed. So you can rectify those situations even without any more resources, really. Just do a bit of reorganization using the organization chart. So create these position titles and think about the work that happens in each of these positions, bookkeeper, receptionist, whatever the position is, and then put the person's name in those boxes. You are now the customer service rep, and you are the receptionist, and you are the bookkeeper. If someone spans the organization chart, still do it. This is what you do in advertising. You are this position, and then you're also the bookkeeper. Now, that's inefficient. And it also is, it isn't using the uniformity of work idea, because advertising people are get leads, get leads, get leads. There's a certain qualities that a person has that can do that work well. Bookkeeper, completely different qualities. So if you do have situations like that, I would say over time, try to work your way out of it. So put a date in a box like this one saying, I'm going to hire the bookkeeper in Q2 of 2021. And then the person who used to do the bookkeeping is going to be full-time advertising. So think about how to work your way out of it. Another sign that you're a little chaotic in what you're doing is when people can't tell you exactly what they're accountable for. Or worse yet, multiple employees can't tell you who's accountable for what. And that often comes from this loading up with people with work that they're supposed to be doing. They're a little good at it, then you keep having them do it. Someone does it one day, someone does it the next day. The organization chart and job descriptions are a complete antidote for that. So it's just another push to, really, if you've got any people dependency going on whatsoever, use these strategies that I'm giving you to help rectify that. Now, it takes some managerial diligence to make sure that if you put a person here and here, that they're not jumping over here to do this work because they're so used to it. So you're going to have to really be kind of focused on making sure that they understand what their accountabilities are and that you don't want them jumping around to other positions and doing other work. If you have a person who fills multiple boxes, that's fine. But what I would certainly would not recommend or suggest you change right away is if you have multiple people filling a role that's only supposed to be one person. So 2 people are president, or 2 people are the manager of marketing and sales. That usually happens when you've put one person in this role and then they just can't do it very well. And so you're saying, okay, I'm going to come down from here and help them, or I'm going to have my best salesperson do this part-time. So that kind of situation where you've got one key managerial role and multiple people think that they are that position is, it causes more problems than it's worth. So if you do have that situation, my recommendation would be to pull that person out of this role, fill it yourself, just in this kind of line relationship. So the president then becomes also the sales and marketing manager. Whoever was in this box gets moved back down to sales or to marketing coordinator. You work on the processes for this position, really get them down. What is the sales manager supposed to be doing? How do they do it? What's the work that happens there? And then open that position back up again. Another way I see this is when you're promoting people before they're capable of doing the work. So you've got a really good salesperson. You're like, ooh, I'm going to make them the manager. Then I can go back into this box and I don't have to do this so much. And sometimes you're promoting someone beyond their capabilities and they just are constantly failing because they don't know how to be a manager because you haven't trained them. You haven't given them the processes for that. All right. So let's talk about, does anyone have any questions about that? There's a few questions that are a bit unrelated to this, which I'll try to get to before we end. But this is a good question. So someone's asking if you spend a lot of time to, I'm paraphrasing what you're saying here. If you spend a lot of time training your employees, like from here to here, or here to here, like say this takes a year, then don't you run the risk of them just quitting and then you've lost like all this time that you've invested in their training. I think that's what you're saying. That's a totally valid concern. And I think sometimes businesses will shy away from it and get nervous because you are spending a lot of time. You are spending a lot of effort and time and energy training someone from here to here. So just a few suggestions. One, have good recruiting and hiring. So know who you're hiring. Spend the time in the beginning to get to know that person before you decide that you're going to commit to training them for a year or 6 months. As your processes get better and better and your training gets better and better, you're going to improve your the time it takes for you to train. So know that, but then also really be mindful of who you're bringing in. And I know it's hard to find employees nowadays with unemployment and COVID and everything that's been happening, but try to screen your candidates, because it's astounding how much money is lost because of bad hires. And I don't know what the latest statistics are, but last I looked at it, it's something like twice the annual salary. I mean, it's a huge amount of money. And it's just the adding up of all the time it took you to get them, the managerial time, the training time, the mistakes that they made, all of that. Mistakes are an opportunity to learn. Well, you're paying for those mistakes. So you add all that up, and it's an incredible amount of wasted time. So screen your candidates really well. And then the other thing that Michael Gerber used to talk about a lot is creating a game worth playing. So create a place where people want to be. Like Jack Collins says, get people on your bus who want to be on that bus. Create a nice place to work. Create the kind of environment where your competition wants to come work for you. You can bump if you're just scraping the bottom of the barrel trying to pay people as little as possible. People don't always work for money. Meaning that's not the only reason they stay in your company, but you can bump people up $1 an hour or sometimes more, and it's going to save you money in the end. So make sure you're paying people a living wage, and then create a game worth playing, create a place people want to be, create a nurturing environment where you've got good managers in place who hold people accountable, but they also care about them. They also really want to make them better. And they want to be in a place where they're not screamed at and put down, but you're lifting people up. The number one reason that employees quit is because of bad management. And it's just the culture where, they're berated, talked down to, not given training, made to feel stupid, all these things that bad managers do when they just don't know how to do it any different. So create a game worth playing. Another thought on this subject is, if you don't train your people, like, what do you expect? Like they're going to be untrained. And the whole look over my shoulder and watch me do it thing, that doesn't create efficiency. That costs way more than if you were to do something like this from the bottom up. So let's talk about a couple processes from the library, which I think are related to organization strategy. So the number one, obvious one, is strategic planning. So there's a process in our library right here. I'm in Guiding the Business. There's a process in a library right here called strategic planning. And I believe I already have it here somewhere. There it is. So you can download this process from the library. And if you haven't done a strategic plan, some of you may already have, but if you haven't, then this is a really easy way to get one done. There's some work plans over here which guide you in how to do it. I'm just going to move this one to the top. It says watch the video first. So this has got a link to a video which talks about strategic planning. I think it's the one of the founders of Infusionsoft, is a super smart guy. And then you just go through these 5 steps, and they're laid out here in these work plans. And then down here, there's some documents that can help you. There's one here called Creating Your Mission, Purpose, Values. This kind of stuff can go a long way. I think maybe it gets a bad rap sometimes, but it really helps to create this idea of a game worth playing. Like, what are you here to do? What's your mission? What do you value? And then ultimately creating the actual strategic plan. It can be, there's a few examples in here, but I'm talking about like a 1-page document that says, by the year 2024, we will be 10 million in sales with a net profit of 25%. And then this is how we're going to do it. And there's questions down here you can answer that help guide you. After you've built the strategic plan, there's this cool little form here. And I'll tell you, it's really great for managers of departments, as well as for the whole company. So it's this super simple concept. I've got this vision that I've created, or a plan, one page. It's not a business plan, just one page. Then I'm going to put in, okay, to get 1 year closer to this vision, what am I going to do this year? So I lay out the annual priorities. So right here, you can just click this, or you can do it from the dashboard too, and you lay out your annual priorities. So it could be like sales conversion at 50%. So you just put out what these goals are, and you can describe it even further in this description field. So in the end, I've got these annual priorities all listed out. Maybe hire operations manager, or build efficiency plan, or whatever it is. Oddly enough, sometimes these annual priorities point back to processes you need to document. So if I want to get the sales conversion to 50%, or maybe we say 80%, that's better. I probably have to look back at my sales process and say, how can I make this better? Then you take the annual priorities and you break them into quarters. So of all these things here in the annual priorities, what am I going to do Q1, 2, and 3? And then I got the action taken. This is just, this simple thing right here really just can help keep you focused on what those priorities are. And these things change, obviously, and you can change them as you go. But rather than just having this plan that's laying there, on your wall, you take action on it. So how this is related to organization chart is the organization chart is a picture of the strategic plan. So it's the company positions that are going to create, once realized, it will be the strategic plan in action. And you can look and do like the hire dates that kind of takes this organization chart and kind of points it back to the strategic plan. So the strategic plan is the organization chart. Without knowing what your sales goals are and what your conversions rates and all of that, it's kind of hard to build this future organization chart. So strategic plan, definitely a great library process that goes with the organization chart. And then the second library process that I think is absolutely necessary along with the organization chart is a budget. I'm just going to collapse this so I can see all of these. There's a process in the library called budgeting. This is it right here. So again, I think budgets get a bad rap too because people overcomplicate them. I think you create a budget and it's just like this huge multi-workbook plan that gets so complicated and you just kind of lose track of it in the first month. So keep it simple. This is just view only. I don't have Office on here, so it doesn't let me open spreadsheets. So this is just a template. You can find something like this on the internet too. So why the budget is important to the organization chart is for the balancing of sales and operations, really. So we talked about this juggling act between here and here. This all is related to money. So if I'm going to plan for leads being generated, money being spent on that, them being converted to sales, when is the sales cycle? How long will that take? If I'm going to hire someone here and then move them up here, when am I going to have to hire them? Am I going to have the money to do it? All the time paying attention to what's most important down here, which is net profit. So this can help you kind of see the numbers, see how, what numbers they need to be in order for you to make those key hires. I might even do this like instead of month, you could just do like Q1 instead of month by month. It's not going to let me edit it because I don't have an active version, but you get the idea. So Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4, and then 2021. And then you do Q1, 2, 3, 4, and then that is 2022 at the end of it. So think about these three tools together, the vision, strategic planning, the organization strategy, org chart, and then your financial plan, which is the budget. Those three tools, I think, are really great for any growing business to try to try to plan and see where your business is going. Any other questions? I'm just going to take a few before we run out of time here. Someone's asking about the length of these boxes. So it's true that if I have a position title, oh, this is a good example. This says manager, marketing and sales. And then I've put people's names here, Tom, Mary, Bob, which is not what you would do, but this is what it looks like on the job description. But when I go back to the org chart, this is all I see. And we don't have a fix for that now. There is going to be some improvements coming to the organization chart, I think later this year. We're going to have like a side view where you can click here and see the job description for a position without having to click on the box. And eventually the widths will be able to be set by you. So you can make this box bigger if you want to. We're also going to have colors where you can change the colors. And then eventually we'll even have a little side view where you can put people's pictures, which will be cool. But for now, that doesn't exist. It's going to cut off the title. So if that affects how you title things, then, think about that. This does bring up another topic of putting people's names in boxes. I mean, literally. First of all, I never want to make a box a person's name. So I would never want this to call this somebody's name, like Bob, say. Don't ever do that, because you're just creating people dependency by doing that. Some people do like to see the people's name in the box, so that it would be more like you go advertising here, and then you could do like a space and then go Bob, like that. You could do that. The issue will become when you have multiple people filling that role. So if I'm hiring 6 apprentice techs, well, it's going to make the tree just much longer and more complicated. And there's really not a reason to do that in TouchStone for this reason. On the dashboard here, I see who's filling what role right here. So in account administration, right over here to the right here, and if I go to user accounts, I set up my employees here, and then I choose them, their name on the list. And then I go to control panel here, and I assign them to a role on the org chart. So now TouchStone knows that Mary is the bookkeeper. So there's no reason to put her name in that box. It actually becomes redundant. Because if I'm here advertising, I see Bob here, but really I want to choose advertising and then choose the person that I want in that role. Once you've done this and set it up correctly, if you go to the dashboard, you're going to see the people's names here in the role that they fill. All right, so I'm going to cut it off there. People who have questions that I haven't answered, I'm going to email you and get back to you before the end of the day on those things. Next week, we are going to talk about job descriptions. So I'm going to talk about technically how to create them, the different ways to create them. And then we're going to talk about how to use job descriptions as a management tool, which to me is the most important thing. As a manager, if someone asked me, what is the best tool you use to manage employees? I will always say their job description in TouchStone. So, and I'm going to tell you why, and you will be a true believer at the end of this. The job descriptions are the best management tool you'll ever have.